Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. I am so happy to be with you for day 4 of the 5-day Picky Eating Challenge. Today's lesson is a big one. I feel like that this is a really important piece to the puzzle to putting this all together for you guys. And I'm really excited because I have a lot of extra things that we're going to talk about today that I think it's going to really pull all this together. And of course, we still have one more day tomorrow. And in tomorrow's lesson, it's going to be all about how you can start working to really expand your child's variety, which I know is the end game for many of you guys, right? You really want to know how to get them eating some new food. So that's for tomorrow. But today we have a lot of great stuff to talk about. So first of all, I want to make sure that if you're here and you're listening right now, that you are signed up for this challenge. Even though we're on day 4, get your email in here because I will be sending out more information. I have a special bonus that nobody knows about yet that's coming out tomorrow afternoon. I will talk about it on the live though too. So make sure that you show up here tomorrow as well because you'll be the first to hear about it. So head to yourkidstable.com/challenge if you haven't already and get your email in so that you get this stuff in your inbox also. It'll still be really worth it even this late in the week, I promise you. So if you have done that for some reason and you haven't gotten a welcome email, for some reason it didn't go through. I have a really small amount of people this is happening to. I'm not sure why, but make sure that you reach out to me on the page, email, message me, whatever. I will make sure that I get you in so that you have everything that you need. Go to yourkidstable.com/challenge first. And that link is right above this video so that you can just grab it there if you need it. Okay, also make sure, because I'm doing this here and outside of our Picky Eating group, even though I will be posting it there right afterwards, make sure that you're liking Your Kids Table too, this page right here, so that it shows up in your feed tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a super lesson. We're going to talk about the details of the lesson, but then afterwards, I am going to answer any and all questions about picky eating. I've been asking you guys all week to stay with me, to stay focused on the strategy that I'm teaching you, just so that we can all be really focused and concentrated on what we're doing. And so many of you have really impressed me because you're already starting to put pieces together. You're kind of moving ahead of me one step, which I did not expect. So very good, truly, because you guys are thinking this through. It shows me that you're applying it and that you're putting it into practice in your home. So there have been a couple of topics. I know it's frustrating, but I've been saying, hold on, I'll answer that later in the week. I just really want us to stay focused. So kinds of questions like how to get your kids to eat utensils, gagging, transitioning to table foods. I know there was a bunch of questions about that. I will answer all of that at the end of our video tomorrow, and I will stay on as long as I need to make sure that I get as many questions answered possible. So look for that tomorrow. And also, because this is such a really important lesson today, because this is all about what you should be serving your child to set them up for the best chance of expanding their variety without pressuring them. Okay, remember, tomorrow we're going to get more specific, but if you have a grandparent, another family member that watches your child, if your spouse is not in a challenge, take a second right now and tag or share this video with them so that they can watch too. It will make a world of difference if you're both on the same page and they're hearing it too, and they're hearing it coming from me, not you. It will make a really huge difference. So make sure that you share and tag for sure. Okay, you guys see I keep like cheating. I have all these notes here because I'm a talker and I can get off topic, and I need to make this super concise for you. So I'm just checking my notes to make sure that I hit all of the announcements I want, and I have. So, and I also have a cheat sheet here of a bunch of questions from the group today too, because there were some really excellent questions. I'll be hitting those up and the questions you guys are asking live right after we talk about today's really big lesson. Okay, so our lesson today is all about how to end short order cooking, which I know so many of you are stuck in, right? You're stuck in the endless nights of hot dogs or macaroni and cheese or chicken nuggets or whatever it is for your child. It may be a few foods that your child has that you're rotating through every night. It may be the same exact food. that you are serving every single night. I have to tell you, and if you've read the lesson today, you know that the trick is actually pretty simple to stopping to serve short order cooking and their own individual meals. And that is to serve one meal as a family. Okay, so that means that no one gets their own special meal, but that everyone is getting the same meal. All right, I know what you're already thinking. There's no way that I can do that, right? And I will tell you that there is a way that you can do that, because the key to making it work is to make sure you have at least one food there that your child normally eats. Now, I will say that we can never guarantee what our kids are going to eat. And I apologize, guys. It just got so dark in here. I'm in Pittsburgh, for those of you that don't know. And we are having an extremely rainy day, and a huge dark cloud just came over. I'm sitting right in front of a window for like some good natural light, but I think it's making the video a little grainy because it just got really dark outside. So just bear with me. Hopefully it'll brighten back up here a little bit. So the key is to making sure that you have that one food that you know that they eat most of the time. Now, of course, our picky eaters are infamous for having those foods that you're not sure that they're going to eat. So just a good rule of thumb is that you can feel confident if your child eats a food 50% of the time or more, you can count that as a food that they like. If they decide not to eat it, that is totally on them. Okay, so that goes back to the division of responsibility that we learned on day one, right? So it's not your job to make them eat it. You're scheduling your meals out now, so you want to remind them calmly and not in a pressuring way of when the next meal will be, so that they understand that they won't be eating again. But the food that you're including as part of that meal, whatever it is, it doesn't have to make sense. Okay, so if your child only eats chicken nuggets and you are serving hamburgers for dinner, it is okay to have a side of chicken nuggets. But you want to serve it so that it seems like it's part of the whole family. And the key to this is that they're having some of what everybody else is eating on their plates, and ideally some of what they're eating is on at least some other people's plates. This can be really tricky with kids that have a really limited diet, but that's ultimately the goal, so that it seems like the food is there for everyone and not just there for one person, or that the rest of the food isn't for just one person. Okay, now I'm going to blow your mind again, and I know that this is a hard one, and we've actually had quite a few very specific questions about this. And the question is, how much of that preferred food do I allow my child to eat? So great, I serve the side of chicken nuggets, and they don't eat anything else. They don't eat the peas. They don't eat the potatoes. They're not eating the fruit that I cut up and put on the side. They just want to eat their chicken nuggets. What am I supposed to do about that? I know that this is a really difficult one, but because we are committed to not pressuring our kids, and because we know that ultimately it's going to get them to branch out and try their own foods, we're going to allow them, especially in the beginning, as you're just implementing these strategies, you're going to allow them to eat as much of their preferred food as they want. Now, there are some exceptions to this, like if you are having a side of applesauce cups, you know, like with the pop-off lid, sometimes I'll serve those with dinner. I just put enough out that there's one for everybody. So there isn't an endless supply of those. So there are some instances that you can do that. Like it's gone. But when you get into, you can only have 2 of those, or you can't have 3 bites, you can only have this much of that, or 2 servings, or whatever it is, then it starts to turn into pressure very easily. Now, it does not always have to be that way. And in my own home, there's a lot of gray areas. My kids' eating is in a pretty good place now. So you can bend the rules here a little bit, but you want to be very, very careful about how much pressuring. I would really encourage you, because I know many of you are just starting to implement these, and you're looking for bigger changes, you're really looking to have a positive environment in the home, it's a huge step just getting other foods onto the plate, and your child will be way more likely to tolerate the food on their plate if they know that there's not any rules about their preferred food. So one of the things that I like to do is to talk to kids about this, and we've talked about this a little bit through the week, but right now you kind of have a game plan. You know, you can tell them the good and the bad. You can say, well, things are going to look a little bit different at mealtime. We are not going to force you to eat anything, and you don't have to eat anything that you don't want to. You can say, you know, me and your dad, or I choose foods that I think are really good for all of us, and it'll be your choice if you eat those or not. But there will be other foods on your plate, or we're all going to serve ourselves some, and you can decide how much you want to take. So some family style meals is stressful, and I get that. So it might be something that you just do some of the time. It might be something that you just do occasionally. But I will tell you, for extreme picky eaters, kids that are really particular, it's super helpful to give them some ownership over the food. And it's a way to get them to start interacting with it. They have to look at it, they have to put it on their plate, they decide where it goes, and they decide how much they take. So I don't care if it's just 1 pea. That is a great step, because like I said in today's written lesson, they're not going to wake up one day and just say, hey mom, I think I'm going to have broccoli today. But they might think about it if it's on their plate. And if they see it on their plate regularly enough, they're going to be looking at it, they might smell it, they might touch it. Whereas if it never gets to their plate, they can't even start to break down those walls. And the tip that we learn tomorrow, the strategy that we learn tomorrow, is really going to build on this. So it has to be on their plate. So I know that there's more more questions coming about this, but I do want to answer this question first, which is, what happens when your child comes to the table and they flip out, they have a tantrum, they gag, that the food is there? So we've talked about this a little bit already earlier in the week, because I know some of you had to get over that hurdle to even start having no pressure meals. But it's really important to know that this is part of it. You know, you don't want to have your child have a total meltdown where it's like a physical response. Then when you see your child gagging and they're actually having a real physical response, they're actually so uncomfortable, you want to back it up and make it a little bit easier for them. So that might mean putting it on a separate plate. It might mean serving family style and just asking them to pass the bowl, always with the goal of getting them to the point where they can tolerate it on their plate. I want you to know too that it's okay if you have a younger child and they are crying and melting down. You want to be reassuring. You want to remind them that they don't need to eat it, okay, but they're just going to have some on their plate. Again, use your judgment. You know your child. You know how far you can push them into building up to this point. Okay, but starting to have them get the idea is really, really huge and is a big step. There are tons of people posting in our Facebook group all sorts of stories about how their child miraculously ate a burrito or a breadstick, all sorts of other foods for the very first time. And it's because something else got onto their plate. They didn't open up the refrigerator and ask for this thing. It was because it was served during a meal, the pressure was off, they were hungry when they sat down, and they were willing to branch out. Even if it was just a lick or a taste, it's an open doorway that allows them to keep building on that skill. All right, are you guys with me? Is this making sense? I know that this is a scary, overwhelming step. I know no one likes to hear a kid crying. Nobody wants to hear anybody griping, but give me a smiley face or a thumbs up if you're with me. I see that there's lots of great questions coming up, and I am definitely going to get to those. All right, guys, good. I like hearing that. Sometimes, you know, I'm on the other line and I see you all on there, but it's great to see the thumbs up, because I know you're listening and I know you're there, and that it's resonating with you a little bit, right? Thank you so much. Okay, so let me tell you about how this worked for one of my picky eating class students. This story actually really sticks out in my head, because I remember the mom had this huge light bulb moment for her daughter. Her daughter was about 8 years old, Olivia. So she was a little bit older. She had 4 children. The other 3 children had no feeding issues. And the mother said, I've pretty much thrown in the towel. I give Olivia her own food every night. She's down to one brand of macaroni and cheese, and it was like the Velveeta macaroni and cheese noodles. It can only be this kind, this brand. She has a total meltdown if it's anything else. She used to eat a bunch of different kinds of macaroni and cheese. Doesn't anymore. She has her own, this is the only thing she eats every single night. The rest of the family has a totally normal dinner every single night. And she said, up until this point, I pretty much just kind of washed my hands of it because it's just too exhausting to deal with. So in the Mealtime Works class, I talk about this family style eating in a lot more depth. And in the lesson, as she's reading it, she decides that that night she's going to serve dinner family style. And she chose another one of her daughter's preferred foods. So there was just one there. And I think, can't remember what it was. It might have been grapes or something like that. And she served a different type of macaroni and cheese. It was a different brand. And I don't think it wasn't the creamy kind. The, what are those called? The Velveeta-y kind, the ones that are really mushy, the shells. She served a different brand. And she said, I was fully expecting like total chaos to break loose. And she said it was the first time they ever did family style serving. They passed around the meal, and Olivia took her first, in like 2 years, her first different kind of macaroni and cheese that night and ate it, and nobody said a word. It was amazing just from this one simple strategy. Now, of course, she'd been working through the course and was applying everything that you guys have been learning this week. So she had all of that behind her, but I just want to tell you how powerful it can be when all of these pieces come together. And I know a lot of you get, it sounds like something so small. Well, great, she ate another kind of macaroni and cheese, but that is huge because she was refusing anything else. And as soon as we start to break down those walls, it keeps opening the door to more and more and more foods, right? Okay, good. I like the thumbs up, guys. That's helpful to see. Okay. All right, so let me check my notes. I have some great questions here already from the group, and Deanna is on too. So if you see, she's answering for me in the feed, and she's also texting me all of your questions just so I don't miss any, because sometimes it's so hard when it's scrolling live. So the first question I wanted to answer was from, I hope I'm saying your name right, Rosamund. So pretty, Rosamund. She asked a question in our group today about deconstructed meals. So she said, can we break apart a casserole? She said, I know casseroles are really difficult for picky eaters, which is true in a lot of cases, not always. She said, is it okay if I serve everything broken down so that we can still have the casserole? Absolutely. That is one of my favorite tips, and it's one of the things that I share a lot in my class. I have recipes and all that sort in there, and I put those ideas in there, like doing a baked potato bar or a nacho bar, burrito bar, a bruschetta bar, because you can have like a meal that the adults can really eat, enjoy, and pull all different sorts of things in together, and it's all separate, and it's also really fun. There was a picture actually in our group too. Somebody didn't label it that, but they did that last night and put together all of the little dishes, and their children loved it. So Rosamund, that is a fantastic idea. There is nothing wrong. You're not over catering to your child at all. That's a fantastic strategy. Summer asked me, how old do you have to be, how old does a child have to be able to serve themselves family style? So I know that this is shocking and hard to imagine, but believe it or not, children are capable of starting to learn and do this at 18 months old. That is on the early side, and you certainly do not have to do it that early. But by 2.5 to 3, most kids are capable of doing it with some assistance, and then maybe they start and you help them finish, or you start and they finish, especially for foods they like. They may not be able to get as much as they want or are able to. Now, again, I know Summer said it seemed very overwhelming to teach her. I think she said her children were 3 and 4, to teach them how to do this. But it is really worth it because it creates that positive environment. It's actually giving them a really good self-help skill, and it's giving them that interaction with the food. And kids at that age, like the younger they are, they really do take ownership of it, and they feel really motivated and good by putting the food on the plate because they feel like big kids. They feel like adults. So it is a really good thing to do, but if it feels overwhelming and stressful to you, you don't have to do it all the time. One of the other things that we talked about, and I think I see coming up in some of the questions, is you absolutely can do divided plates. Those are fantastic, and just have the stuff on there for them. Divided plates are great anyways for picky eaters. We almost always use them in my house. It's also with toddlers. My youngest just turned 3, so it's still just logistically easier for him to be able to like scoop out rice or eat other foods in a kind of a divided plate. Again, you don't have to use those, but some kids do really respond well to them. Okay, so Michelle had asked me about kids only eating preferred foods. Michelle, I know that you were feeling really overwhelmed and stressed by, I don't just want her eating her preferred food. And I want you to know that I totally hear you. I'm hoping that your question got answered as I was going through the lesson a few minutes ago about how important it is. But I just wanted to reiterate to you specifically, Michelle, because I know you were really reaching out and looking for some answers, that it does not have to be this way forever. I mean, we're on just day 4 here. So giving your child the space and letting them know that you aren't going to pressure them, and just allowing them to eat what they want to eat right now within all of the other structure that you're providing, with sitting at the table and having the meal on a schedule, will be immensely beneficial. Really, truly, it will be. Okay. Mindy asked a really great question, and I think you guys were incredible in the group chiming in. She was saying she was serving dinner tonight and she wanted to include carrots as her non-preferred food. So actually, I think I dropped my paper here. As printing out the homework, so that I wanted to make sure that I read it right to you guys. So today for the homework, I asked you to fill in these blanks. So today pick your meal, write that in. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, or snack, you're going to serve your child blank, a food that they eat most of the time, and a small amount of blank, a food they typically don't eat. So Mindy was filling this in, and she wanted to pick carrots. And then I have the second part of this homework assignment to circle one of these 2 options, that you're either going to serve it family style, or you're going to have a small amount of the food on their plate, because that will be much less overwhelming to them. So I think Mindy was getting at something really helpful, because she said, how should I serve the carrots? And truly, I'll tell you, thin and crispy are usually great. But you have to pay attention to what your kid likes. Some kids like soft food. Some kids like crispy food. Some kids like flavorful. Some kids like bland. Pay attention to what other kinds of things that they're looking at and take a hint from there. But really, the more important point, and why I wanted to make sure I address this in the lesson today, is that it doesn't matter. If you really want to get them eating it, you do want to think about those things. Just getting them exposed to the food in any capacity is a step in the right direction. And I really do like kids to see food presented in a lot of different ways. I think it's really helpful, and I think it keeps things really interesting for them as well. All right, guys. Now, I see that there are a ton of really good questions. And Paige, I think you just gave a great comment. I'm so glad you brought this up. Paige said, when I'm not feeling like dealing with the mess, I hold the serving dish near my kids and ask them to tell me how much they'd like. Absolutely. I will sometimes also put it in the Tupperware that it's going to end up like, I try to overcook. So we have leftovers for lunch and or another leftover dinner later in the week. I know it's going to end up in a leftover container. Sometimes I'll do that and bring it right to the table so I can just pop the lids on later and put it right in there and not make a mess. Because believe me, I have 3 kids under 8. I totally understand. And I need things to be as simple as possible. I'm right with you. Great tip, Paige. Raven said, if my kid won't eat but a few bites of what I give him at dinner, do I let that be it or offer him something else I know is his favorite? That is it, Raven. That's it. So you've made your choice, because this is your job in the division of responsibility, right? You've made your choice that this is what I'm serving. So you've picked that preferred food. If they chose not to eat a lot of it, that's it. If you get up and go back and get something else, you're sliding right back into the short order cooking, and you're sending the message to them, oh, if I don't feel like this right now and I'd really rather just have that other thing, Mom's going to get up and get it anyways. I know that that's really hard to do. And if it's something that makes you really uncomfortable, you can think about doing a bedtime or snack or dessert. And check out yesterday's live video. I talked a lot about that if you need more tips on it. Okay, Jeannie says, how do you recommend dealing with a child that refuses to participate in family-style serving? My 5-year-old will not serve himself at the table. When dishes are passed to him, he asks one of us to serve it to him. So I would, Jeannie, if you've been doing this for a while and he's not doing it, I would ask yourself if it's more of like an attention-seeking thing at this point, or if it's more of a he can't stand to do it. If he can't stand to do it, that's a little bit different. But I would maybe give him a different kind of utensil, maybe something that has like a wider handle on it. Maybe it's just awkward for him to handle. And I would kind of not get into a big discussion with him about it, but I would say, oh, it's your turn to do it. And maybe talk to him about it outside of a meal and say, you are old enough to actually be able to scoop that out. Is there some reason that you're not wanting to do it? See what he has to say to you. My guess is he probably doesn't have an answer, again, unless it's really uncomfortable for him. You could even try having him help you hand over hand. So have him put his hand on and put yours on top just to make him feel a little bit comfortable. And as he does better, you can kind of pull back on that. Okay, and then Katie, I want to answer you quick. Katie, you said you've tried to sign up 2 times and never got an email. Please email me at alicia@yourkidstable.com and I will get you added on for sure, or send me a message. Put it in our Facebook group. I promise I will get you. If you put it in a comment somewhere, you can do that here. Just make sure you tag me so that I don't miss it. I try really hard to get to all of your comments, guys. I really, really do. But sometimes Facebook buries them for me, especially when there's so many. So, okay, let me see what other comments we have here. I think I've gotten to a lot of them. Okay. Kara says she has tried, but 2.5-year-old is not making any changes. Any advice? Okay, thank you, Kara, for bringing this up. I'm so glad, because this was one of the things that I wanted to talk about. So I have been telling you guys every single day how much I love our Facebook group. And I do. I truly mean it from the bottom of my heart, how positive it is and all of the wonderful things that I'm seeing. But I know that it can seem, if your child isn't making as much progress as some of the other posts that you're seeing, it can start to feel really disappointing. And I don't want it to feel that way. I have loved the outpouring of support to those of you that have said that in the group, because truly every child is different. And if these changes are a bigger leap, for your family, it may take a little bit more time. If your child is an extreme picky eater, if they have underlying sensory issues or oral motor issues, that's kind of like the coordination of how they're chewing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that kind of stuff tomorrow, because there are some more in-depth things that can absolutely play a role here with the picky eating stuff. I want you to take heart. Know that you're not alone. When my son was not eating, and I mean, he was barely eating anything, it took us weeks and weeks to get through it. And I was actually just thinking today, I'm going to try to make it, I have to share some of that story in our Facebook group, because those were some of my hardest days as a parent. And I do truly get it. So know that you're taking the right steps and that you're doing the best thing that you can for them, and just to stay consistent and try to dig down deep and find that patience, Kara. If you have any specific questions, though, reach out in the group and let us know. If you feel like, take a look at the lessons again, make sure that you're not missing anything, or anything that you're doing could be tweaked a little bit. And it may not be at all. For some kids, it really just take a little bit more time. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think I answered some of these questions about the food touching in different plates. And yes, you give more food if they like it. I think that question was answered also. Somebody asked, does everyone have to eat the preferred food? So you don't have to. This gets really tricky. I think if you're able to, if your picky eater has enough variety that you can kind of rotate through, if you're serving a side of chicken nuggets every night, that's a lot to ask the rest of the family to also have chicken nuggets every night. But if you're able to, like, sometimes get some of their food onto their plate so they're just seeing it, so that they're seeing that this isn't just my food, it would be tremendously helpful. That would go a long way, but not necessarily. If you're able to, that would be awesome. Okay, so let me see. Okay, Tammy, you say your son has Down syndrome. How does she know if her child is actually capable of eating? This is a great question, Tammy. And I think that, as you know, and for those of you listening that may not know, children with Down syndrome often have difficulty coordinating chewing. And there's just some stuff going on with their muscles that can kind of make it more difficult to eat. So it's very common for children with Down syndrome to have eating difficulties. It's also very common for children with Down syndrome to be picky eaters for a variety of reasons. So that's a tricky question to answer, but let me say this, and I'm going to actually answer this tomorrow because I think I can answer it better tomorrow as we're talking about all of the other outside topics off of the strategies. Because I really want to stay focused on this last strategy for today, and I promise I have a list going of stuff I'm going to make sure that I answer tomorrow. I'm going to add this to it. But Tammy, I would say if you see him making progress, especially this week, then you're on a good track. If you see him eating a variety of different types of food, if you see his jaw moving up and down, those are the things that you definitely want to be looking for. But stay tuned. I will definitely answer more about that tomorrow as well. It overlaps with some of the other questions I'm going to dive into. Okay, let me see. I think I answered that one. Such a Rita, I might be saying that wrong. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong, or that might be a spell check error. But the question was, we eat spicy, daughter doesn't. Should I serve same food that isn't spicy for her? Absolutely. If you're able to do that, yes, I would absolutely recommend that. Oh, this is a great question. Ellen, I meant to write this question down. This was asked in the group too. What about kids that throw food on the floor? So I'm assuming that this is, I guess I shouldn't assume, but it's very common for younger children to do this, right? So one of the things that I would do first is only put small amounts on their plate so that there isn't a lot. If they're pushing their plate away, throwing their plate, throwing the food away, it's going to take a little bit of being on top of them. You're really going to have to be like, as soon as you set that food down, you're going to have to be ready to like grab their hand or grab the plate and say food stays on the table. If they start melting down and crying, allow them to leave from the table. A lot of times, totally typical behavior for toddlers, as though it's so frustrating and you want to just kind of keep repeating that mantra over and over and over again, grabbing their hand and having them pick it back up. After the dinner is over, you can also have them clean it up. But the thing is, once kids learn that they don't have to eat it and they see a food there that they like, they usually stop throwing it. It just takes a little bit of time and consistency in breaking that habit. Okay, guys, we are kind of over time today, but I wanted to make sure there's so many great questions. I thank so many of you for being on here today. Let me make sure. Paige said, once it's on their plates, how long will it take them to actually try it and make a decision whether they like a new food? It really depends. For some kids, this happens so quickly. Sometimes it takes months depending on what the food is. Stay tuned because tomorrow we're going to be talking about another really important core strategy and how we can use that to start branching out to having them expand their variety. Okay, and then Stephanie says, I introduced strawberries to my son along with a preferred food. It took my son 2 months to finally eating it whole and wanting more. Within those 2 months, he would touch it, smell it, ignore it. Thank you, Stephanie. That's a great response to Paige. You can check out the rest of her comment there too. And yes, Laura, that's on my list. So Laura said, tomorrow, can you give us some tips about how to tell if there's a possible motor issue? My 5-year-old has a speech delay and is very picky. On my list. Oral motor stuff, sensory stuff is all on my list for tomorrow. Also, that really special surprise bonus that I'm going to be telling you guys about, because I cannot believe it. This is day 4 already, and we just finished the live lesson. So I'm so super excited tomorrow. Lots of big surprises, and we're going to do a super lesson tomorrow and answer all sorts of questions. So stick around, hang out, write it down in your calendar, carve out the time to be here. Of course, I'll be posting it again in the group afterwards. And make sure that you're looking, if you haven't gotten your email, reach out to me. or go to yourkidstable.com/challenge to sign up. If you don't get that welcome email for whatever reason, it didn't go through, but you should get that. And check your spam and promotion folders also. And lastly, the strategy of the day is always pinned to the top. I just have to keep saying this because Facebook doesn't show that anymore on mobile. You have to click the button to see the pinned post, but I'm keeping it there so that it's really easy for everybody to find. I will put this video link right into the lesson, and I will also post it in the group. It has been so good to be with you guys this Thursday afternoon. Thank you for all of the fabulous questions. Thank you for all of your support that you're giving to each other and how hard you are all working. It has been a great week so far. I am so excited for tomorrow. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.